My husband vanished for 3 days. No call, no text, no explanation. Just silence so loud it pressed against my ears and made my chest feel tight every time I checked my phone. When he finally walked back through the door, he didn't look guilty. He didn't look scared. He didn't even look relieved to be home. He looked entitled. "I don't owe you explanations," he said, like it was a reasonable thing to say after letting his family think he might be dead in a ditch. I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My hands were shaking, but my mind had never been clearer. "You're right," I told him. That was the moment everything ended. I slid a manila folder across the kitchen table. Divorce papers, a private investigator's report, photos he never thought I'd see. The color drained from his face in seconds. I'm 36. I'm a woman. And I'm writing this while my hands are still trembling. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. Because once the shock wore off, something else took its place. Clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. Monday morning, my husband kissed me goodbye like any other day. Said he'd be home after work. We talked about groceries, about dinner, about the future. 6 years of marriage wrapped into a routine so normal it never once raised my guard. He never came home. By 7 that evening, his phone went straight to voicemail. His office said he'd left at 5:30. His friends didn't know where he was. His parents started panicking. By Tuesday morning, I was filing a missing person report. The police found his last phone ping downtown, a hotel. And that's when the officer's face changed. That look, the one that tells you the truth before the words do. "Adults sometimes need space," he said. So I found my own answers. By Wednesday morning, I knew exactly where my husband had been spending his nights and who he'd been spending them with. And when he came home, acting like I was the problem for wanting answers, I decided he was right. I didn't owe him forgiveness. I didn't owe him patience. And I definitely didn't owe him a marriage. Before the disappearance, before the hotel, before the photos that burned themselves into my memory, I genuinely believed I was in a good marriage. Not perfect, but solid, steady. The kind people describe as boring when they really mean safe. We met in our late 20s, both tired of games, both saying the right things at the right time. He was charming in a low-effort way, funny without trying too hard, attentive without being smothering. I liked that he didn't feel flashy. He felt dependable. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. Nothing extravagant, no crowd, just the two of us, sitting on the couch in our apartment, half watching a movie neither of us cared about. He paused it, turned toward me, and pulled out the ring like it had been weighing on him all evening. I remember laughing first, then crying, then saying yes without hesitation. We got married the following year. Small wedding, family and close friends, no drama, no red flags anyone could point to later and say, "See, that was the moment." 6 years together. 6 years of routines, morning coffee, shared jokes, weekend grocery runs, quiet nights that felt comforting instead of empty. We talked about kids, not urgently, but seriously. Soon, we'd say, when the timing feels right. I thought that was us being mature, waiting until we were stable, prepared, responsible. Financially, we were separate. That was his idea. He framed it as modern, practical. "Less stress," he said. "No fights about money." I didn't argue. I had my own income, my own accounts. I'd inherited some money years before we married, and I'd used it to buy the house, my house, 2 years before we even met. He moved in after the wedding. His name never went on the deed. At the time, it felt like a technicality, a piece of paper. We were married. What difference did it make? I worked regular hours, 8 to 5, home most nights by 6. I cooked. He helped, sometimes. We split chores, split expenses, split life in a way that felt equal, or at least close enough that I didn't question it. If there were problems, they were quiet ones, subtle ones, the kind you explain away because nothing feels bad enough to confront. He started being distant in small ways, more time on his phone, longer pauses before answering questions, a habit of sighing when I talked about plans, vacations, renovations, the future. I told myself it was stress, work, life, marriage settling into its long middle. I never suspected cheating, not once, because we didn't fight, because he didn't stay out late, because he kissed me goodbye every morning and texted mundane things like, "Don't forget trash day," and "Do you want chicken or pasta tonight?" That's the part people don't understand. Infidelity doesn't always announce itself with slammed doors and lipstick stains. Sometimes it wears the face of routine, of comfort, of trust so deep you stop looking for cracks. So when he walked out that Monday morning like every other day, calm, affectionate, normal, I believed him. And that belief, that's what made the silence that followed feel unbearable. The first warning signs didn't arrive like alarms. They slipped in quietly, wearing excuses. He didn't change overnight. He drifted, slow enough that I adjusted without realizing I was moving with him. It started with his attention thinning. Conversations that used to stretch comfortably now ended early, like he was mentally somewhere else. I'd be mid-sentence, watching his eyes glaze just slightly, his thumb scrolling his phone while he murmured, "Yeah, that makes sense." I told myself I was imagining it. Then came the space comments. Not arguments. He wasn't confrontational like that, but little sighs, little remarks dropped casually and left to linger. I just feel overwhelmed lately. I don't know who I am outside of us sometimes. I think everyone needs room to breathe. They sounded reasonable, healthy even. So I nodded, gave him room, backed off instead of leaning in. That was my mistake. He started spending more time away from home, but not in ways that screamed danger. No late-night partying, no obvious lies, just longer workdays, more errands, more, "I'll be a bit late." I never checked his phone, never tracked his location, never asked for proof, because I trusted him. And because I trusted myself, my judgment, my ability to recognize when something was wrong. Looking back now, I see the contradictions. He complained about feeling distant, yet rejected every attempt to reconnect. Date nights were postponed. Weekends were suddenly busy. When I suggested counseling, gently, carefully, he laughed it off. "We're fine," he said. "Every couple goes through phases." I believed him. There was one moment, though, one that sticks with me now, like a splinter I ignored too long. About 2 weeks before he disappeared, I asked him directly if everything was okay. Not in an accusing way, just concerned, honest. He didn't answer right away. He stared at the kitchen counter, jaw tight, like he was weighing something. Then he smiled, too fast, too practiced. "Why wouldn't it be?" he said. That smile should have scared me. Instead, I apologized. For pushing, for overthinking. That's how subtle manipulation works. It convinces you that your instincts are the problem. The distance continued, but nothing concrete ever surfaced. No names, no stories that didn't add up, no smoking gun. Until the silence, until the unanswered calls, until his parents panicked, until the police officer's tone shifted from concern to dismissal. And suddenly, all those small moments, the sighs, the excuses, the emotional withdrawal, clicked into place like a pattern I'd been staring at without seeing. By the time I hired the private investigator, part of me already knew. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. Monday morning started like every other Monday. He kissed me on the cheek as he grabbed his keys, told me he'd pick up groceries on the way home, asked what I wanted for dinner. I remember standing in the doorway, watching him walk down the steps, thinking nothing of it, because why would I? By 7 that evening, dinner was cold and my phone felt heavier in my hand with every unanswered call. Straight to voicemail. I told myself his battery must be dead, or he'd gotten caught in traffic, or a meeting ran late. I replayed his morning smile in my head, like proof that everything was fine. At 7:30, I called his office. They said he'd left at 5:30. At 8, I called his best friend. No idea. At 8:30, his sister. Confused. By 9, his parents were panicking. That was when fear crept in. Real fear. The kind that tightens your throat and makes your thoughts spiral. Hospitals, accidents. The million ways a normal day can turn into a nightmare. I barely slept. Tuesday morning, I filed a missing person report. The officers were professional at first. Took notes, asked questions. A married man with no history of disappearing, phone suddenly off. Those details mattered. They told me they'd ping his last phone location. Downtown. A hotel. When I asked which one, the officer hesitated, typed something into his computer, and then his expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Sympathy mixed with resignation. "Sometimes adults leave voluntarily," he said carefully. "We usually wait 48 hours before escalating." I understood what he wasn't saying. They'd already checked. They knew he'd checked himself in. That afternoon, I made the call I never thought I'd make. A private investigator named Raymond, recommended by a coworker who'd been through a brutal divorce. His voice was calm, almost tired, like he'd told this story 100 times already. I'll start immediately, he said. I'll call you within 24 hours. And I'm sorry, but most of these cases end exactly how you think they will. I didn't sleep that night either. Wednesday morning, my phone rang. He's at the Westfield Hotel, Raymond said. Room 308. Checked in Monday evening. He's not alone. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might be sick. Who is she? I asked. Male, he corrected gently. Early 30s. They arrived together. Stayed both nights. Left the room together twice. Dinner last night. Breakfast this morning. I stared at the wall, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. Do you want photos? He asked. All of them. 23 images hit my inbox minutes later. There he was, laughing across a restaurant table, holding another woman's hand, kissing her in the hotel parking lot, walking into the room with her, leaving with luggage, hugging her goodbye in the lobby. Time-stamped, documented, undeniable. By 6 that evening, I had divorce papers printed and neatly stacked on the kitchen table. The investigator's report sat on top, photos clipped inside a manila folder. At 6:47 p.m., my husband walked through the door. Hey, he said casually, like he hadn't just shattered my world. And in that moment, everything I'd been holding together finally snapped into place. He set his keys down, kicked off his shoes, walked to the fridge like it was any other evening. Hey, he said again, grabbing a bottle of water. What's for dinner? I was already sitting at the kitchen table. I don't remember deciding to sit there. I just remember the chair beneath me, the edge of the table digging lightly into my forearms, my hands folded so tightly my knuckles had gone pale. Where were you? I asked. He took a long sip of water before answering, buying himself time. Then he shrugged. I needed some space. 3 days. No warning, no message, no explanation. I filed a missing person report, I said quietly. He rolled his eyes. That's dramatic. I'm a grown man. I don't need to report my every move. Your parents were calling hospitals, I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. They thought you were dead. Then you should have told them I was fine. I didn't know you were fine, I said. You turned your phone off. He set the bottle down harder than necessary. Annoyed now. Defensive. Look, I'm not doing this. I took time for myself. I don't owe you explanations for everything I do. There it was. The sentence that finally broke whatever illusion I'd been clinging to. I stood up. You're right, I said. He frowned. What? You're right, you don't owe me explanations. I picked up the manila folder and walked around the table, holding it out to him. But I don't owe you a marriage. He opened the folder. I watched his face change in real time. Confusion first, then recognition, then panic so sharp it made his breath hitch. He flipped through the photos faster and faster. This isn't— Wait, he stammered. You had someone following me? The report explains everything, I said evenly. Hotel details are on page 3. Timelines on page 5. Pages 6 through 8 are the photos. All 23 of them. His hands started shaking. This isn't what it looks like, he said quickly. We just reconnected. It didn't mean anything. Sign the papers, I said. You can't just do this, he said, stepping toward me. We need to talk. You said you don't owe me explanations, I replied. I agreed. Now I'm giving you the same courtesy. He dropped the folder on the counter and reached for me. Please, he said, just let me explain. I stepped back. Don't insult me more than you already have, I said. 3 days, while your family thought something terrible had happened to you. He's not random, he blurted. She was someone from before. I don't care, I cut in. Sign the papers or don't. Either way, I'm filing in the morning. This is my house too, he snapped. No, I said calmly. It's not. I bought it before we married. Your name isn't on the deed. His face flushed red. You can't kick me out. I'm not, I said. I'm suggesting you stay somewhere else tonight. If you stay, take the guest room. We're done. He started crying then, real tears, shaking voice. It was a mistake, he said. I was confused. A 3-day mistake at a hotel, I replied. You weren't confused. You were deliberate. I walked upstairs and locked the bedroom door. I listened to him cry for an hour. Then I heard the front door slam. And for the first time since Monday morning, the house went completely quiet. The silence after he left felt unnatural, too clean, too sharp, like the house itself was holding its breath. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of our conversation, every word he'd used to minimize what he'd done. Space. Confusion. It didn't mean anything. Each excuse landed heavier than the last. By morning I was exhausted, but steady. I emailed my lawyer before I even brushed my teeth, sent the investigator's full report, sent the photos, sent a brief message. He's gone. I want this filed today. By noon, the paperwork was officially in motion. That's when the retaliation began. Thursday afternoon, I was served with a restraining order. I stood on my front porch holding the papers, sunlight warming my skin while the words blurred in front of my eyes. According to him, I was volatile, threatening. He claimed he feared for his safety after I ambushed him with illegal surveillance. Illegal. I almost laughed. Court was scheduled for the next morning. Friday, he showed up with his lawyer and his sister, both of them crying, both of them staring at me like I was something cruel and unrecognizable. His lawyer painted a picture of obsession, of stalking, of emotional manipulation, claimed the investigator had crossed legal lines. My lawyer didn't even blink. Timeline. Missing person report. Licensed investigator. Public spaces. Hotel common areas. All legal. The judge looked at the photos, then at him. Sir, she said evenly, you disappeared for 3 days. Your wife acted reasonably. Request denied. His sister glared at me as they walked out. Saturday morning, his father showed up at my door. He didn't knock, he pounded. Open up, he barked. We need to talk. I opened the door just wide enough to face him. You're embarrassing my son, he said, pushing past me. This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding doesn't involve 2 nights at a hotel with someone else, I replied. She was going through something, he said dismissively. Women get emotional. That word, women, hit harder than the accusation. You should have been there for him instead of spying, he continued. You don't even have proof anything really happened. I pulled out my phone, showed him the photo of them kissing. He barely looked. That's nothing, he scoffed. A kiss? You're throwing away a marriage over a kiss? Over 3 days, I said, and a choice. He switched tactics, voice softer, pleading. She's devastated. Give him another chance. Think about the family. He thought about family when he checked into the Westfield Hotel, I said. This conversation is over. He left angry, promising I'd regret it. Sunday, his mother and sister arrived with suitcases. We're here to collect his belongings, the sister announced. Make a list, I said. I'll have it ready. They called me cruel, accused me of financial abuse, claimed I was leaving him with nothing. He'll get what he's legally entitled to, I said calmly, which isn't much. They left shouting threats about lawyers and judges. That night, I changed the locks, installed cameras, took precautions I never imagined needing in my own home. Then the messages started. Unknown numbers, pleading, apologies, promises. I blocked every single one, because by then I wasn't reacting anymore. I was responding. People assume the darkest moment comes when you discover the betrayal. They're wrong. The darkest moment comes later, when the shock wears off and you're left alone with the wreckage. For me, it arrived quietly, in the middle of an otherwise ordinary afternoon. I was sitting on the floor of the bedroom, surrounded by half-empty drawers and cardboard boxes, sorting through 6 years of shared life. Socks, old t-shirts, a jacket I'd bought him for a winter trip we never took. My hands froze when I found the ring box. The engagement ring he'd given me, still exactly where I'd left it, untouched, like it was waiting for something that no longer existed. I sat there longer than I want to admit, staring at that box, feeling the weight of everything I'd believed in pressing down on my chest. Not love, loss. Loss of certainty, loss of safety, loss of the version of myself who trusted without hesitation. That was when the doubt crept in. Not about what he did, I knew that. The photos made sure of it. But about me. Had I been too rigid? Too cold? Had I missed something obvious? Was I really as reasonable as I believed? Or had I driven him away without noticing? That's how betrayal works. It plants questions where confidence used to live. That same evening, my phone rang again. Another unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. I can't sleep, he said immediately, voice raw. I'm falling apart. I've lost everything. I closed my eyes. You made choices, I said. This is the result. I made a mistake, he insisted. One mistake. One mistake, I repeated softly. That lasted 3 days. There was silence on the line, then anger. You're enjoying this, he snapped. Punishing me. You're heartless. That word, heartless, cut deeper than I expected. After the call ended, I sat alone in the quiet house and finally cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, just tears slipping down my face while I stared at the wall, wondering how someone could betray you and still believe they were the victim. That night I questioned everything. The marriage, the memories, the future I'd imagined, even my own strength. And that's when I realized something terrifying. Letting go wasn't the hardest part. Standing firm was. The turning point didn't come with shouting or tears. It came with paperwork. Tuesday morning, my lawyer called. They've filed a counterpetition, she said, voice calm, almost amused. They're demanding spousal support, half the house value, and compensation for emotional distress caused by your actions. I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. So this is the strategy, I said. Rewrite reality until I look like the villain. She laughed softly. That's exactly what it is. And it won't work. The hearing was set for later that week. When we walked into the courtroom, he looked smaller than I remembered. Shoulders hunched, eyes red, dressed in black like he was attending a funeral, playing the part perfectly. His lawyer opened with emotion, not facts. My client made a single mistake during a difficult period in the marriage, he said. And his wife responded with nuclear retaliation, hiring a stalker, attempting to leave him destitute, and turning his own family against him. My lawyer stood immediately. Objection, she said. None of that is accurate, and counsel knows it. The judge sustained. Stick to facts, she said coolly. Facts. That was my turning point, because facts don't bend for tears. When his lawyer tried again, claiming nothing physical had happened, that the hotel stay was just space, my lawyer placed the photos on the bench. Photo 12, kissing. Photo 15, entering the room together at night. Photo 18, leaving together in the morning. Photo 21, returning after breakfast. The judge looked at him. You stayed in a hotel room with another woman for 2 nights, she said flatly. What exactly is your argument? Silence. Then came the finances. House ownership, mine before marriage. Accounts, separate. Careers, both full-time. Adultery, documented. The ruling came down clean and decisive. House, 100% mine. Cars, each keeps their own. Retirement. Separate accounts remain separate. Spousal support, limited, temporary. Enough to transition, nothing more. As the judge spoke, I felt something inside me unlock. Not relief, power. Outside the courthouse, his mother screamed at me in the parking lot, called me cruel, heartless, evil. I didn't respond. I got in my car and drove away. That was the moment I understood something fully, completely, without doubt. He didn't lose me because I was cold. He lost me because I refused to lie to protect his comfort. And from that moment on, I stopped defending myself. The ruling didn't end the chaos. It redirected it. For 3 weeks after court, my life turned into a lesson in how far entitlement will stretch when it's denied the ending it feels owed. Week 1, he started showing up at my workplace. Not inside, never crossing that line, but sitting in his car across the parking lot, engine off, watching the entrance like a ghost who didn't know how to haunt properly. Security noticed him the second day. Do you want us to intervene? They asked. Only if he comes inside, I said. He never did. He just sat there, for hours. Co-workers started whispering. I gave them the short version. Divorce. He's not handling it well. No drama. No details. Week 2, the phone calls began. Not to me. I'd blocked him everywhere. To my boss. Hi, I'm calling about one of your employees, he said, voice trembling with practiced concern. I'm worried about her mental state. She's been acting erratically. My boss asked who was calling. When he identified himself, my boss replied, I'm aware of the situation. Please direct any concerns through legal channels, and hung up. He called 4 more times that day. Then HR. Claims of financial theft, emotional instability, accusations that sounded serious until you lined them up next to reality. I brought my lawyer to the HR meeting, showed them the filings, the investigator's report, the ruling. The HR director looked exhausted. We'll document this as harassment related to a contentious divorce, she said. If it continues, we'll pursue action. That bought me 48 hours of silence. Then he called my parents. My mother listened for 10 seconds. If you cheated on my daughter, she said calmly, that's between you and the court. Don't call this house again. My father was less patient. You're the cheater, right? He said. Lose this number. Week 3 was the legal nonsense. An emergency motion claiming I'd hidden marital assets, demanding access to accounts I'd opened years before we ever met. We went back to court. The judge didn't hide her irritation. Do you have evidence? She asked his lawyer. Or are we fishing? Silence. Motion denied. And finally, the actual divorce hearing. He showed up in morning black again. Red eyes, fragile posture, victim rehearsed to perfection. His lawyer argued neglect, emotional distance, one mistake blown out of proportion. My lawyer presented timestamps. 2 nights, same room, public affection, intent. The judge didn't hesitate. House, mine. Support, temporary, limited. Debt, separate. Responsibility, his. When she looked at him, her voice hardened. This court does not reward betrayal followed by manipulation. Outside, his mother screamed at me again. I didn't listen. By the time I drove home, the house felt different. Not empty. Clear. 6 weeks later, it was over. Completely. Officially. The divorce papers arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. Thin, unremarkable, anticlimactic for something that had detonated my entire life. I signed where I needed to, scanned the final page, and closed the folder without ceremony. I didn't cry. That surprised me more than anything. The house feels bigger now, emptier, but not in a lonely way, cleaner. I repainted the bedroom, donated the furniture that carried too many memories, rearranged the shelves so the space finally reflected me again, not the version of myself that had been constantly accommodating someone else. Work steadied. My boss stopped checking in. The parking lot stayed empty. No more unknown numbers lighting up my phone. No more emails from lawyers trying to rewrite facts. I heard through mutual friends, most of whom I quietly let go, that he moved back in with his parents for a while. Then found a small apartment with a roommate. He's trying to rebuild. Good for him, truly. I ran into him once, completely random. A store aisle, paper towels between us like a barrier neither of us crossed. Can we talk? He asked, eyes pleading. No, I said, calm, certain. I need this to move on. I turned to face him fully then. You don't need my forgiveness to move on, I said. You want it so you can feel better about what you did. That's not my responsibility. He cried. I walked away. That was the last time. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm not even particularly sad anymore. I'm practical. I learned that when someone tells you who they are, believe them immediately. When he said he didn't owe me explanations, he was telling me exactly how much he valued our marriage. I just took him at his word. I learned that boundaries aren't cruelty. They're clarity. And I learned that proof matters. Without those photos, I'd still be questioning myself, still being gaslit, still wondering if I was too much for wanting basic honesty. People asked if I should have tried counseling, if I was too harsh, if 6 years deserved another chance. Respectfully, no. He didn't stumble into betrayal. He planned it, executed it, lied about it, and only felt remorse when caught. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. I'm dating again. Slowly, carefully. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. Sometimes a late text still makes my chest tighten, but I'm working through it. I refuse to let one person's betrayal poison my future. The divorce is final. The house is mine. The life is mine. He wanted space without explanations. He got permanent space and all the explanations he didn't want. And that's enough for me.